webcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the webinar today. My name is Damien, and I'm an account manager for AMS. Before we start, I just want to go through a bit of housekeeping. When you joined the meeting, there should be a dialog box that opened. In the bottom right-hand corner, there should be a text box where you can type in any questions during the webinar, and we'll be doing a bit of a Q&A session at the end where we'll cover the questions that have been raised. You can also download a PDF of the presentation and a brochure about DocuWare and HR. Now, today, there's only a couple of slides, so the main part of the webinar is going to be the demo, but I thought it might be useful to highlight some of the key reasons why companies implement document management in HR. So, having a digital archive for employee records removes the need for physical filing and frees up space. The comprehensive deletion profiles in DocuWare help maintain retention periods and delete old records. And using the search tools, it's much quicker to find employee documents as opposed to searching through folders or filing cabinets. With a central point of access, all relevant parties involved in actions such as a candidate selection can be involved. And the workflow engine in DocuWare can automate a variety of tasks, such as employee onboarding and monitoring training expiry dates to save time and avoid human error. The forms in DocuWare are great for engaging with employees if they need to fill out a request for something like holiday or a purchase request. And with a central secure digital archive, all of your employees' personal information is now secured against unauthorized access, with every action tracked and audited for security and compliance. So I'll move on to the demo now, and if I open up my browser. So if we start off with the DocuWare interface, as you can see, this is a web application, so you can easily access it on any device, wherever you are, and there are some mobile apps which will go into a bit more detail later. There are tabs along the top to access the functionality in DocuWare, and I'll just show you what those are now. So document trays, this is generally the first stage of capturing a document before you then go ahead and store it. There are various search dialog boxes, so you can choose the file cabinet you want to search in, whether you want a simple search option or maybe a more comprehensive search option. Lists are just saved searches, and they're just a good way of seeing what documents are coming through the business. So we can see some documentation for review, a new vacancy form request, some CVs that have come in, and any new hires that are in here. Tasks are where you perform workflow actions, so something needs to be approved or reviewed. So you can see here we've got the documentation for review, some new employees, and the vacancy request. Folders are just another way of browsing or searching for information. They're not real folders, we're just using index values to structure the information because sometimes it just makes more sense to browse rather than search by keywords. And in here, we've got some forms which we'll go through as part of the demo. As you can see, the viewing pane is on the right-hand side, and there is a toolbox with some options here that might be useful for you as well. So if I start off with capture, storage, and retrieval, so using DocuWare as a simple digital archive, we can import some files. So let's say we just got some files that we've stored on the network, and we can go in and import one or more files here into our document tray. You might also be scanning documents. So I have an HR scan folder here, and if I just open my example documents folder, so if I grab one of these documents and kind of pretend that I've scanned it into the scan folder, and DocuWare is watching this folder and will automatically pick up any document scanned there, split them into individual files, and move them into the document tray for indexing. So if we grab a couple of these documents that we've just captured and we go ahead and store them, Now, some of the things that DocuWare does to help the storage process is we can use select list. So I can say this is a driving license. We have something called single click indexing. This is where DocuWare has kind of read the image or the document that you've imported. So we don't have to type any information in. So we can just click on the field. So we can say, okay, this is the first name. This is the last name. And go ahead and store. And we'll just do this for another driving license as well, just to go through that process again. So we can say, okay, this is another driving license, and we can use first name and last name, and click on store. Now, if you're receiving documents via email, you might want to store them from there. So if we go into our email, we can see here we've got a variety of documents. I could go ahead and let's say I'll store this passport. And this is using something called the Connect to Outlook module. And you can create a variety of different profiles. And I'm just going to store this to the HR cabinet. You can store attachments, you can store emails, or you can store both. And what we're going to do here is we're going to bypass document tray completely and just store it straight to the file cabinet. So I'm going to enter the index entries in here. So now that we've stored some documents, the next thing we might do is need to search for them. Maybe one of the employees has asked for a copy of one of their documents, or maybe someone else is kind of asking for a copy of a particular financial document or a proof of right to work, something like that. But we can just go into the search options. And again, similar to the storage options, we can have lots of options or just a simple search dialog. So I'm going to search for, let's say I'm going to have a look for a visa, and I can choose the name of the person and click on search. And within a couple of clicks, we can get straight to that file, have a look at it, and we could do something with it. So we could email it to the person making the inquiry, print a copy, download a copy. We can also add some annotations if you wanted to. Now, let's say we didn't know some of the index values, but we knew some text that was on that document. So if I just reset the search, we can go in here and I'm going to search for Olga. And this is going to search all of the contents of all the documents. So quite a powerful tool. And we just click on search. And here we go. We can find the document, and DocuWare quite handily highlights the word that we've been searching for as well. We can also search from our mobile device. So up my phone, and we can go and have a look at see. So it's kind of a mirror of what you can see in the web browser. We can have a look at our tasks. We can have a look at the lists. But I'm just going to search for a document. Choose which document I want to search for. Decide who it is. And within a couple of clicks, we can get straight to the file. And again, we can have a look at the file like we could on your mobile device, and then you could do something with it. So you could kind of download it and share it via some of your mobile apps if you needed to. So that kind of covers basic storage and retrieval, so using DocuWare as a digital archive. And the next thing we're going to show is a workflow. And to provide an example of this, we're going to use a hiring process. And we're going to start off with forms. So we've got a DocuWare form here, and this is a vacancy request. So we're going to go through the, the authority to recruit process, and then look to find our candidates, go through the hiring, and then onboarding as well. So these forms within DocuWare, these can be public or private, so you can provide access to anybody you like, and we can take different types of data. So here I'm going to say the requisition was raised by me, and this is quite useful because then I can say, okay, if I'm asking for this employee, I need to then send this request to my director for sign off. So we can use anything that's entered in here to make a decision. The forms can also be dynamic. So if I select new, nothing changes, but if I select current, you can see here a new field has popped up. So it's just a way of providing the smallest amount of information you need on the form, and you can change the behavior of the different controls based on input from the person. So we'll just say the new person. So we're going to go accounts assistant for the finance department on a permanent contract, annual salary So once we've submitted that, this is going to trigger a workflow. It's going to send an email notification to say there is a new vacancy request form that's been submitted. We can see here there's a link to the task itself, and we can put some information about that vacancy request. If we have a look at the task, we can see a new entry in our list. There is a new vacancy request form. We have a new task. And for this, I could also use my mobile. So if we have a look at my tasks, and we have a new vacancy request, and we can choose the one that we've just received. We can have a look at it, decide whether that's acceptable, make a decision, approve the request. We could also add some comments if we wanted to, and then position the stamp. And you can see that the stamp provides like a visual history of who performed that action, when they performed it. Click and confirm, and hopefully you saw the task disappear from my list of tasks, so you can see that happening in real time. So now the authority to recruit has been approved, we need to notify HR that it's okay to start the recruitment process. So we can see here we've got an email to say the request has been approved. Please go ahead and start the hiring process. And let's say we've put some adverts out and we've had some emails from people with their CVs. So in here we've got an email from this guy, Brian Watkins. I'd like to apply for the job of accounts assistant, and we can store his CV. And this is going to store the Brian's CV straight into DocuWare. You'll notice as well, it's just tagged the email and marked it as DocuWare, so we know which emails have already been processed and which have been stored in DocuWare. And if we go back to DocuWare itself, we can now see that there is a new task to invite someone for an interview. We can have a look at our lists, and we can see there is a new CV. So here's our kind of talent pool for the people that we are looking to hire. And if we have a look at the task, we can view Brian's CV and decide, okay, we want to invite this guy for an interview. Now, everything you see is completely configurable. I've just set this up with some options that I thought might show off some of the functionality within DocuWare, but you can add as many kind of inputs as you like. I've just put, okay, we're going to add a date option here, and we're going to invite Brian for, rather than make it midnight, let's make it a bit more friendly, 10 o'clock in the morning, and click on confirm. And we're making the most of the automation tools in DocuWare to reduce the amount of kind of human intervention. So what's happened is I've selected the invite for interview, I've selected the date and time, and now DocuWare has sent Brian an email. And especially in HR, where maybe you need to use specific wording in those emails, it means that DocuWare can handle that for you. So we can see DocuWare's email, Brian, thank you for your application. We'd like to invite you in an interview at this date and time. So the next stage would be to make a decision. So we've got the interview result and decide how that interview went. And we'll say, yeah, the interview went well. We're going to offer Brian a job. At this stage, we could maybe take some different inputs. So we could add an employee number, add in some days holiday, and click on confirm. Now, everything that you enter is then data we can use to make decisions. So for instance, I've put in 5 days holiday there. If Brian then filled out a holiday request form for 10 days holiday, you could configure DocuWare to automatically check to see whether he had enough days holiday left to take that amount and remove that human element from checking. So now DocuWare should have emailed Brian to say, congratulations, please could you complete the new employee onboarding form? And I already have this open in my browser. Let me just close this one. So in a typical situation, when you have a new employee, they might have to fill out multiple forms with the same information, and it just creates a lot of paperwork, and obviously it's repetitive. So what we're doing with DocuWare here is we are taking the information once, and with the forms, we can either create one document, which is just a representation of this form, or we can take the information that's being entered and merge it with one or more documents. And what we're going to do here is we're going to create a pack. So if we enter in some of the details, enter in national insurance number, you can make some parts of the form mandatory, some optional. We can type radio buttons, checkboxes, signature fields. You could have a file upload as well. So by submitting that form, if I now go to folders, and we can have a look at personal records by name. Before, there wasn't a Brian Watkins folder, so we can see now we have a personnel record for Brian. We have the CV that we looked at earlier, and the form we've just filled out has created each of these 4 documents. So if I have a look at the eligibility to work form, and we have a look at, I think, page 3, we can see some of the information that Brian's filled out and the signature. We can have a look at Brian's contract. And because we've taken Brian's email address, we can also email a copy of his contract to him as well. And I've also set this up to trigger a task for the workflow, for the HR manager to check the details and confirm the new information for that employee. So if I have a look at my tasks, and just check monitor tasks. Just refresh the browser quickly. We can see in our lists we have a new hire. So this is from the form that's been completed. So here's the new employee form. We can see that it's automatically populated some of the information, so we don't have to do it twice. And we'll just go through, make sure this information is correct, confirm the annual salary that was negotiated in the interview, and choose the contract type. And click and confirm. And that's completed the onboarding process. Now, the next thing you might want to do is enter all of that information into a payroll system. And it seems kind of repetitive to duplicate everything that you've done. So here we can use our export app. So we've developed an export app that can run either manually or at a scheduled interval. So once a day, once a week, once an hour, once a minute, whatever it is, to extract the information to a CSV file. So I'll just open that up again. So here we've got the export profile, and if we run that, we should shortly see a file being created in here. Here we go. And your payroll system can automatically absorb this information and just eliminate that whole data entry process completely. Now, DocuWare can also be used for other forms of automation. And as an example, I've got some pay slips. So if I have a look at the payslips folder, and if I grab a payslips file, so here we go. This payslips file has lots of people's payslips in here. If we have a look, we can see all of the payslip details for each of the employees. And if I mimic the payroll system, just outputting all of the payslips to a folder, DocuWare is going to monitor this folder, pick up those payslips, and what it's going to do now is it will store them, it will split them, it will read who the individual employees are, and then it will start emailing them out to them. So if we go to our email address, now I've cheated a little bit, and I've used the same email address for all of them, but we should see them starting to come in here soon. And if we go to DocuWare and have a look at the folders, this folder list was empty, but now we should start seeing it being populated, so we can see each of the payslips for each of those employees. And now we can see the emails coming in with those payslips attached. So you can see each email address is, each email is personalized, and it has the correct payslip on there. So if I open one of these up, so if I open up one up for Peter, and we open up the attachments, we can see the payslip is for Peter, and it's just Peter's payslip. Now, the last part of the demo is going to be about training management, and this often takes up a lot of time if you're using physical documentation. So if I start off with receiving a, let's say it's a training document, so I've got a forklift license here. And we'll go ahead, store this. And if I select a review date, in the back end of DocuWare, there is something called auto-index. And in here, we've got a routine that can be set to automatically run. And basically, it's checking for any documentation where the review date is in the next 30 days. And so if it finds anything with a review date in the next 30 days, it will pop it into my list of documentation for review. So we can see here, that's just popped in my list. It's also created a task. I can have a look at the license. Let's say I want to update the license. So I'll import the latest copy. I can go into the task. I could clip the new copy of the forklift license. And by clipping it, it's quite handy as well because you can see all of the historical copies as well. So I can just go ahead, maybe change the review date to next year. Click and confirm, and then it removes it from my list. So rather than having to manage this with spreadsheets, finding the copies in the driving license, DocuWare is doing all of the hard work for me, alerting me when I need to rebook training, update certification, and then storing all the new copies. So that's it on the demo side of things. I'll just go back to the last part of the presentation. Now, as promised in the invites, we said we would give you some 5 practical tips in the webinar, so here they are. I appreciate I've paraphrased these a bit, but they are actually based on real conversations with some of the projects I've worked on. So if we start with what you want to achieve now. So once DocuWare is bedded in, then you can review the situation. The platform's very configurable and it can adapt and grow with you when you're ready. So don't worry too much about achieving a lot in the first go, not like a big bang situation. You don't have to change the way you work. And this is often a barrier for some people because they're worried about the upheaval to their users. And the idea is to use DocuWare really to help improve the current processes and just digitize them. For the best results and adoption, it's always good to engage with the people who are going to use the platform. If they can take ownership of the system, and they will become its champions, and it'll be much easier to get that kind of buy-in from them. And don't fear change. Change is inevitable, it's always going to happen. The trick really is to make those changes gradual. So it just makes it a lot easier for your team to adapt to that new way of working. And we often find that users are really surprised about how their daily tasks can actually be improved once they've got some experience using the platform. And lastly, focus on one process to begin with and map it out. Visually seeing the flow of decisions and actions can really help, and drawing this out on a whiteboard or using DocuWare's process planner are good options for this. So that's it for the webinar, but there are a few questions that I was going to take a quick look at. So if we go through those, I've got a question from Andy. Is this cloud or on-premise? You can have either. Mostly it's cloud now because it's very easy. Most people are going cloud, nothing to host. And the structure is very simple as well. So all of the main modules are included. It's just based on user licensing effectively. So we've got a question here from Angela. Do you integrate with other HR applications? So I mentioned the export out. We showed how that can export information, basically the index data. that's been captured, and then your HR application can import that and reduce the data entry. But the workflow engine itself can also read and update data sources. So it could update your HR application directly as well. Okay, so there's one from Henry. How is this priced? The cloud option is, I think I just mentioned actually, but the cloud option is just based on user licensing, really. All of the main components you've seen today are included. The only thing that isn't is the export app that we developed. On-premise is a bit more complicated because you need to price in each of the modules, but we can figure that out if we kind of scope out what you're looking to do. Mo, do you offer trials? Yes, we have a free 30-day trial option. If you'd like to give it a try, just drop us an email and we'll get this set up for you. Okay, so I think we've just run over the 30 minutes, but we'll wrap it up here. There's a couple of questions I didn't answer. We'll get back to you on those. And if you want any further information, please don't hesitate to get in touch using the number or email address on your screen. If you wouldn't mind, there's also a short survey. It would be great to get your feedback on the session today. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.